Millionaire, swore he would make her his wife, but on the honeymoon, he discovers she had never been. In the world of high-stakes business and glittering wealth, where power often overshadows humanity, there are moments that remind us what truly matters. Imagine this: a man who has everything, money, influence, and charm, sitting across from a woman who refuses to be swayed by any of it. Ethan Walker, a millionaire known for his sharp mind and even sharper ego, thought he had seen it all. But when Olivia Carter walked into his life, she turned everything upside down. Her quiet confidence intrigued him. Her refusal to play his games captivated him, and her independence made her unlike anyone he'd ever met. Little did either of them know their story would take twists neither could have predicted. Ethan was no stranger to getting what he wanted. Used to commanding boardrooms and bending people to his will, he saw Olivia's rejection not as a defeat, but as a challenge. "I'll make her mine," he vowed to himself after their first meeting. What started as a game, a bet with his best friend Logan, quickly spiraled into something deeper. For 6 months, Ethan pursued Olivia relentlessly, weaving between charm and manipulation until finally she said yes. They were married amidst whispers of disbelief and awe. Two worlds colliding under the weight of secrets neither was ready to confront. But here's the thing about games: they always come with consequences. On their honeymoon, at a luxurious overwater bungalow in Bora Bora, Ethan discovered something about Olivia that shattered every assumption he had about her. As they stood on the balcony, overlooking the turquoise waters, bathed in moonlight, Olivia revealed a truth that left him speechless. She wasn't just different, she was extraordinary. And yet, as Ethan processed this revelation, another storm brewed beneath the surface, one far more dangerous than anything either of them had faced before. Their love story wasn't simple. It wasn't built on fairy tale promises or effortless connection. Instead, it was messy, raw, and real. There were lies whispered in the shadows, doubts that gnawed at their trust, and choices that tested the strength of their bond. Yet through it all, there was an undeniable pull between them, a magnetic force that refused to let go. Ethan, for all his flaws, found himself wanting to be better for her. And Olivia, despite her walls, couldn't deny the way he made her feel, alive in ways she never imagined. The tension escalated when Derek, Olivia's ex-boyfriend, reappeared like a ghost from the past. His arrival wasn't just inconvenient, it was a threat, with cryptic messages and veiled accusations. Derek planted seeds of doubt in Olivia's mind. Who was Ethan, really? Was their relationship built on genuine emotion? Or was it merely another conquest for him? These questions haunted her, especially as cracks began to show in the foundation of their marriage. Ethan, meanwhile, wrestled with his own demons. The bet he'd made with Logan loomed over him like a shadow, reminding him of how their journey had begun. Could he ever confess without losing her completely? As the days unfolded, the stakes grew higher. Olivia's pregnancy added a new layer of complexity to their already fragile dynamic. A baby, a symbol of hope and renewal, became both a blessing and a burden. Could they navigate the challenges ahead together, or would the weight of their past tear them apart? Ethan struggled to prove himself worthy, not just as a husband, but as a father. He worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust he'd broken, showing up in small, meaningful ways that spoke louder than grand gestures ever could. But Olivia, carrying the weight of her own fears and insecurities, found it hard to fully let him in. Their journey took them from the bustling streets of Chicago to the serene beaches of Cancun, where Aunt Elena's modest home became a sanctuary for healing and rediscovery, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Ethan and Olivia slowly began to rewrite their story. They painted walls together, shared laughter over mismatched meals, and learned to communicate in ways that stripped away pretense. Each moment brought them closer, yet the specter of unresolved truths lingered, threatening to unravel everything they'd fought so hard to rebuild. What makes this tale unforgettable isn't just its dramatic turns or emotional depth, it's the humanity at its core. Ethan and Olivia weren't perfect. They stumbled, argued, and questioned each other constantly. But in those imperfections lay the essence of their love. They taught each other that forgiveness isn't easy, vulnerability isn't weakness, and growth isn't linear. Their story is one of redemption, resilience, and the courage to choose love, even when it feels impossible. And now, as we dive deeper into their world, we are left with a question that hangs heavy in the air. Can love overcome betrayal? Can two broken souls find wholeness in each other? Or will the scars of their past forever define them? The answer lies somewhere in the delicate balance between trust and fear, hope and despair. As Ethan and Olivia face the biggest challenge of their lives, the impending birth of their child, they must decide whether their bond is strong enough to withstand the storms ahead. With every page of this story, you'll feel your heart race, your breath catch, and your belief in love tested. You'll see yourself in their struggles, root for their victories, and ache for their losses, because at its heart, this isn't just Ethan and Olivia's story. It's ours too. It's a reminder that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other again and again, even when the odds are stacked against you. So buckle up, because this is just the beginning. The next chapter promises to deliver more surprises, more heartache, and more reasons to believe in the transformative power of love. As we leave Ethan standing by Olivia's side during those final hours before their child's arrival, one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same. The millionaire who once swore he'd make her his wife is now facing a truth bigger than himself. Love isn't a game, it's a choice. And as the clock ticks down to the moment that will change their lives forever, we're left wondering, will Ethan rise to the occasion, or will the weight of his past decisions crush the future they've dreamed of? Stay tuned, because the best and hardest parts of their journey are yet to come. Ethan Walker had always been a man of control. From the moment he stepped into his first boardroom at the age of 24, he'd made it clear that nothing would stand in his way, not competitors, not doubters, and certainly not emotions. But Olivia Carter was different. She wasn't just another challenge to conquer. She was a puzzle he couldn't solve, no matter how hard he tried. The memory of their first meeting still lingered vividly in his mind. The way she looked him straight in the eye without flinching, as if daring him to try something reckless. It unnerved him then, and it unsettled him now. Olivia, on the other hand, carried scars from her past that shaped every decision she made. Her mother's broken heart, after years of betrayal by men who promised love but delivered pain, had left an indelible mark on her. Never let them see you vulnerable, her mother used to say, a mantra etched into Olivia's soul. So when Ethan entered her life with his charm and wealth, she instinctively put up walls. Yet there was something about him, a flicker of sincerity beneath the polished exterior, that made those walls waver. And now, here they were, bound together in ways neither fully understood, navigating uncharted waters filled with secrets, doubts, and unanswered questions. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Aunt Eleanor's modest Cancun home, casting golden streaks across the wooden floors. Ethan sat alone on the porch, staring out at the garden, where lavender grew alongside rosemary bushes. His hands gripped a steaming mug of coffee, though he barely noticed its warmth. He replayed the events of recent weeks over and over in his head: the fight in Bora Bora, Olivia walking out, the revelation of her pregnancy, and finally, his desperate journey to Cancun to beg for forgiveness. Each step felt like a gamble, a leap into uncertainty. For once, Ethan didn't have a plan. He was flying blind, relying only on hope and the fragile trust Olivia seemed willing to extend, if only tentatively. Inside the house, Olivia rested in bed, one hand resting protectively over her growing belly. Sleep had been elusive lately, plagued by dreams that blurred the lines between reality and fear. In one particularly vivid nightmare, she saw herself standing alone at the altar, Ethan nowhere to be found. Instead, Derek stood nearby, smirking cruelly, while whispers echoed around her. "He never loved you." When she woke, trembling and drenched in sweat, Ethan was beside her, holding her close. "You're safe," he whispered, stroking her hair. But was she? That question haunted her more than anything else. As days turned into weeks, Ethan worked tirelessly to prove himself. He cooked meals, helped around the house, and even attempted to paint the nursery, a task that ended with both of them covered in mint green paint and laughing until tears streamed down their faces. These small moments brought them closer, yet the shadow of Ethan's betrayal loomed large. Olivia often caught herself wondering whether his actions stemmed from genuine remorse or guilt-driven obligation. Was he truly changing, or was this just another phase of manipulation? She wanted to believe in him, but the wounds ran deep. Meanwhile, Derek continued to lurk in the background, sending cryptic messages and dropping hints about Ethan's past. "He'll hurt you again," read one text. "Don't forget what." He did. Another message contained a photo of Ethan and Logan outside a luxury resort, accompanied by the caption, "Still playing games." Each message chipped away at Olivia's resolve, planting seeds of doubt she struggled to ignore. Ethan noticed her unease whenever her phone buzzed, and though he asked about it several times, she brushed him off. Some battles, she decided, were hers to fight alone. Back in Chicago, Logan monitored the situation closely. Torn between loyalty to his friend and concern for Olivia, he knew Ethan better than anyone, having witnessed firsthand the transformation from arrogant playboy to devoted partner. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this road ahead would be fraught with obstacles. One evening, while reviewing documents for an upcoming merger, Logan received a call from Derek. "I hear congratulations are in order," Derek drawled sarcastically. "Or should I say condolences?" "What do you want, Derek?" Logan snapped, irritation evident in his tone. "To make sure Ethan doesn't screw things up again." Derek replied coolly, "Because if he does, I'll be ready to pick up the pieces." Logan hung up without responding, but the conversation left him uneasy. He called Ethan immediately, urging him to stay vigilant. "Derek's not going away quietly," Logan warned, "and he knows exactly how to exploit your weaknesses." Ethan listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. He knew Derek posed a threat, not just to his relationship with Olivia, but to the fragile foundation they were trying to rebuild. Determined to protect what mattered most, Ethan resolved to confront Derek once and for all. But before he could act, fate intervened. One afternoon, while accompanying Olivia to a prenatal yoga class, Ethan spotted Derek sitting casually at a cafe nearby. Their eyes met briefly, and Derek smirked, raising his coffee cup in mock salute. Fury surged within Ethan. but he forced himself to remain calm for Olivia's sake. Later that evening, however, unable to contain his anger any longer, Ethan drove to Derek's apartment under the cover of darkness. What transpired behind closed doors remained a mystery, but the next day, Derek vanished from Cancun altogether. Despite this apparent victory, tension simmered beneath the surface. Olivia sensed the shift in Ethan's demeanor, his guarded expressions, the late-night phone calls, the sudden trips into town, but chose not to press him. Trust, she realized, was a delicate thing, easily shattered and painstakingly rebuilt. If Ethan needed space to handle whatever demons haunted him, she would give it. For now, as the weeks passed, preparations for the baby's arrival became a shared focus. Together, they scoured local markets for handmade baby clothes, debated over crib designs, and spent hours discussing names. Ethan suggested Alexander, honoring his late grandfather, while Olivia favored Lucas, drawn to its simplicity and strength. They compromised on Liam Alexander Walker, a name that bridged their worlds seamlessly. Yet amidst these joyful distractions, unresolved issues lingered. Ethan still hadn't confessed the full extent of his past mistakes, fearing it might push Olivia further away. And Olivia, despite her growing affection for him, couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that parts of Ethan's story remained untold. This underlying tension created a fragile balance, one that threatened to tip at any moment. On a quiet Tuesday evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan approached Olivia with a hesitant smile. "Can we talk?" he asked softly, gesturing toward the hammock, swaying gently in the breeze. Olivia nodded, joining him as they settled side by side. For a moment, neither spoke, the rhythmic creak of the hammock filling the silence. "I've been thinking," Ethan began, his voice tinged with vulnerability, "about everything we've been through, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I realize I owe you so much more than apologies or explanations." Olivia studied him intently, searching for signs of evasion or dishonesty. Finding none, she encouraged him to continue. "What is it?" "I need to tell you the truth. All of it," Ethan admitted, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Not because I think it'll fix everything, but because you deserve to know. You deserve honesty, even if it hurts." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. She braced herself for what was coming, unsure whether she was ready to face the answers she'd long sought. As Ethan took a deep breath and began recounting the details of the infamous bet, her world shifted once again. But instead of anger or betrayal, she felt relief. Finally, the pieces were falling into place, revealing a picture far more complex and hopeful than she'd imagined. But just as Ethan reached the crux of his confession, a sharp pain shot through Olivia's abdomen, forcing her to gasp aloud. Panic surged through both of them as Ethan sprang into action, grabbing the pre-packed hospital bag and helping Olivia to the car. The baby was coming, weeks earlier than expected, and suddenly all their fears, doubts, and confessions faded into the background. All that mattered now was getting Olivia to safety and welcoming their child into the world. As they sped toward the clinic, under the starlit sky, Ethan held Olivia's hand tightly, whispering reassurances despite the chaos swirling inside him. "We're going to be okay," he promised, his voice steady, despite the tremor in his hands. "We're stronger than this." Olivia managed a weak smile, clutching his fingers with surprising strength. "Together, right? Always," Ethan replied, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them. Together. The drive to the clinic felt endless. each bump in the road amplifying Olivia's pain and Ethan's panic. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles turned white, glancing at her every few seconds, as if trying to will away the fear that clouded his mind. "Breathe," he urged, for what felt like the 100th time, though he wasn't sure who needed it more, her or him. Olivia nodded weakly, clutching her belly with one hand and gripping the car door handle with the other. The rhythmic contractions were closer now, relentless waves crashing over her body. Despite the chaos, she managed a faint smile when their eyes met briefly. "We're doing this," she whispered, more to herself than to him. But beneath the surface of her calm exterior, doubt lingered. Was she ready? Was he ready? When they finally arrived, Miss Mercedes greeted them with practiced ease, guiding Olivia into the birthing room, while Ethan trailed behind, overwhelmed by the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. As the hours dragged on, the stakes grew higher. Each contraction brought them closer to meeting their son, but also forced them to confront the fragility of life and the weight of their unresolved issues. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that fate had chosen this moment to test them, to see if they could truly stand together when it mattered most. When Olivia screamed through another wave of pain, tears streaming down her face, he leaned in close, pressing his forehead against hers. "I'm here," he murmured, his voice breaking. "Whatever happens, I'm not leaving." But even as Ethan vowed to stay, memories of the past haunted him. The bet, the lies, the betrayal. It all came rushing back, threatening to drown him. What kind of man makes a game out of love? What kind of father starts his child's story with such dishonesty? These thoughts gnawed at him, making it hard to focus on anything else. Yet despite his guilt, there was something undeniable about the way Olivia looked at him during those moments of vulnerability. It wasn't anger or resentment. It was trust, fragile, hesitant, but still there, and that made him want to be better. Not just for her, but for the tiny life they were bringing into the world. Meanwhile, outside the clinic, Derek sat in his car, watching the building with a mixture of frustration and curiosity. He hadn't expected things to escalate so quickly, but now that they had, he saw an opportunity. For weeks he'd been lurking on the edges of Olivia's life, waiting for the perfect moment to step in and play the hero. Now, with her in labor and Ethan clearly struggling, he convinced himself she needed him more than ever. "She'll realize soon enough," he muttered under his breath. Scrolling through old messages on his phone, one stood out, a cryptic text from Logan about Ethan's plans to fix everything. Derek smirked. If Ethan thought he could sweep this mess under the rug, he was sorely mistaken. Back in the birthing room, the tension between progress and setbacks kept everyone on edge. Miss Mercedes remained a steady presence, offering reassurance and guidance whenever Olivia faltered. At one point, Ethan stepped outside to catch his breath, leaning against the wall as reality hit him like a freight train. This was real. Their lives were changing forever, and there was no going back. As he stared at the stars peeking through the trees, he realized how much he still didn't deserve Olivia, or the chance to raise a child with her. But maybe, just maybe, love wasn't about deserving. Maybe it was about showing up, day after day, and choosing to do better. Inside, Olivia wrestled with her own demons. Pain aside, the emotional toll of the past months weighed heavily on her. She wanted to believe in Ethan, to trust that he'd changed. But the scars of his deception ran deep. Every time he touched her hand or whispered words of encouragement, she felt torn between gratitude and caution. Could she forgive him completely? Did she even want to? These questions swirled in her mind, mingling with the physical exhaustion, until she could barely think straight. Still, she held on, drawing strength from the knowledge that their baby was worth fighting for. As dawn approached, the intensity reached its peak. Olivia let out a guttural cry, her body pushing with primal force. Ethan stayed by her side, his shirt soaked with sweat, his hands trembling as he supported her. Then, suddenly, silence. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop spinning, and then came the sound, the unmistakable wail of new life filling the room. Tears streamed down both their faces as Miss Mercedes placed the squirming bundle on Olivia's chest. "It's a boy," she said softly, her voice laced with emotion. Ethan collapsed onto his knees, overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment. They had done it, together. Yet even in the joy of welcoming their son, shadows lingered. Outside, Derek watched the first rays of sunlight filter through the trees, a sinister smile playing on his lips. He knew Ethan's secret wasn't buried as deeply as they thought. Somewhere, somehow, he would find a way to expose it. Inside, Ethan cradled his newborn son, marveling at the miracle in his arms, while Olivia rested quietly, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. Love had brought them here, but forgiveness and the truth still hung precariously in the balance. In the days that followed, the fragile peace they'd built began to crack under the pressure of parenthood. Sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the constant demands of caring for a newborn left little room for reflection. Ethan tried to shoulder as much responsibility as possible, determined to prove himself not just as a husband, but as a father. But the guilt never fully left him. Late at night, when Olivia was asleep and the house was silent, except for the soft coos of their baby, Ethan would sit by the crib, staring at the tiny face that bore traces of both of them. How could he explain the truth without shattering the fragile bond they'd rebuilt? Olivia, too, struggled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she cherished the moments they shared as a family, the quiet laughter, the stolen kisses, the way Ethan's eyes lit up whenever he looked at their son. On the other hand, memories of the bet and Ethan's initial intentions continued to haunt her. She wanted to move forward, to embrace the future they were creating, but part of her couldn't let go of the past. Trust, she realized, was like glass. Once broken, it could never be restored to its original form. All she could hope for was something stronger, forged from the shards of what had been lost. And then there was Derek, lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. He sent vague texts, left cryptic voicemails, and even showed up unannounced at Aunt Elena's house one afternoon, claiming he just wanted to check on Olivia. "You don't need him," he said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. "Not when you have me. I can give you stability, support, a real partnership." Olivia dismissed him firmly, but his words lingered, planting seeds of doubt she couldn't ignore. What if Ethan relapsed? What if the pressures of fatherhood became too much for him? She pushed these thoughts aside, focusing instead on the present, but they lingered like storm clouds on the horizon. As the weeks passed, small victories began to emerge amidst the challenges. Ethan surprised Olivia with a custom-designed mural in the nursery, painted with painstaking detail. It depicted a sprawling lavender field under a starry sky, a nod to their journey and the dreams they shared. Olivia cried when she saw it, touched by the effort and thoughtfulness behind it. "It's beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers along the intricate brushstrokes. Ethan pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. "Just like you," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Moments like these reminded them why they had fought so hard to stay together, but they also underscored how much work still lay ahead. Derek's presence loomed larger with each passing day. Though Olivia refused to engage with him, his persistence only grew. He started reaching out to mutual acquaintances, dropping hints about Ethan's past, hoping to create cracks in the foundation of their marriage. "He's not the man you think he is," he told Rachel during a tense phone call. "If you really care about Olivia, you'll warn her before it's too late." Rachel hesitated, unsure of what to say. She trusted Ethan, or at least, she wanted to, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. Was she being naive? Or was Derek simply trying to manipulate the situation to his advantage? The tension culminated one evening when Ethan received an anonymous package at Aunt Elena's house. Inside was a stack of printed emails and documents, evidence of the infamous bet, complete with timestamps and signatures. Someone had gone to great lengths to dig up the truth, and Ethan immediately suspected Derek. "He's trying to destroy us," Ethan said, slamming the envelope onto the kitchen table. Olivia picked it up hesitantly, scanning the contents with a growing sense of dread. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, shame washing over him. "But it doesn't change how I feel about you," he added quickly. "Please, Olivia, you have to believe me." Believing, however, was easier said than done. The days following the baby's birth were a blur of exhaustion and wonder. Ethan and Olivia moved through their new routines, like dancers learning the steps to an unfamiliar song, sometimes stumbling, sometimes finding perfect harmony, but always aware of the fragility of the moment. Yet beneath the surface of this fragile peace, tension simmered. The weight of Ethan's past actions lingered in every corner of their lives. Even as they tried to focus on the miracle of their son, each time Olivia looked at Ethan, she saw two versions of him, the man who had lied to her and the man who now stayed up nights soothing their crying baby. She wanted to believe the latter was real, but trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. Ethan, for his part, felt the walls closing in. Every smile Olivia gave him felt tinged with hesitation, every touch laced with unspoken questions. He knew he hadn't earned her forgiveness, not fully, and it gnawed at him. The guilt over the bet was a constant shadow, one he couldn't outrun no matter how hard he tried. He threw himself into being the best father and partner he could be, hoping his actions would speak louder than words. But deep down, he feared it might not be enough. What if she never truly forgave him? Worse, what if Derek succeeded in driving a wedge between them? Derek's presence loomed larger with each passing day. Though he hadn't shown his face since Cancun, his messages grew bolder, more insistent. "You deserve better," one read. Another simply said, "He'll hurt you again." Olivia deleted them without responding, but they left traces of doubt in her mind. Was Ethan capable of change, or was he just playing another role to keep her close? The thought made her chest tighten, especially when she caught glimpses of the old Ethan. The way he snapped at Logan during a phone call about business, or the distant look in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. One evening, while putting away laundry, Olivia found an envelope tucked inside one of Ethan's jackets. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing printed screenshots of text conversations between Ethan and Logan. They dated back to the early days of their relationship, detailing the infamous bet. One line stood out, "She's falling for it." "Faster than I expected." Olivia's hands trembled as she read it again and again. How could she have been so blind? All this time, she'd convinced herself that Ethan had changed, that the love they shared was genuine. But here was proof that everything had started as a game, a cruel, calculated game. For hours, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the envelope. Part of her wanted to confront Ethan immediately, to demand answers, and watch him squirm under the weight of his lies. But another part, a quieter, more cautious voice, urged her to wait. If she confronted him now, in anger, there would be no going back. She needed clarity, perspective, and most importantly, space to process what this meant for their future, for their son's future. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed the shift in Olivia's demeanor almost instantly. She avoided eye contact during meals, brushed off his attempts at conversation, and spent long stretches of time alone with the baby. At first, he chalked it up to postpartum hormones or fatigue, but something about her behavior unsettled him. It wasn't until he spotted the discarded envelope on the floor near the dresser that realization hit him like a freight train. She knew. Panic surged through Ethan as he replayed the events of the past few weeks in his mind. Had she found the envelope accidentally, or had someone planted it there? Either way, the damage was done. His first instinct was to explain, to beg her to listen, but he stopped himself. This wasn't about excuses anymore. It was about earning her trust, and right now, he didn't deserve it. That night, Olivia packed a small bag and placed their sleeping son in his portable crib. She scribbled a note on the kitchen counter. "I need time. Don't follow me." As she slipped out the door, the cool night air stung her cheeks, but it did little to calm the storm inside her. Where was she going? To Aunt Elena's? To Rachel's? Or somewhere else entirely? She didn't know yet, and maybe that was the point. She needed distance to think, to breathe, to decide whether the life she'd built with Ethan was worth salvaging, or if it was all built on sand. Back at the house, Ethan found the note and sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. He wanted to chase after her, to explain everything, but the words of the note echoed in his mind. "Don't follow me." Respecting her wishes felt like tearing himself apart, but disobeying them felt like betraying the last shred of trust she still had in him. So he stayed, pacing the empty rooms and replaying every mistake he'd ever made. Hours later, the phone rang. It was Logan. "Ethan, we have a problem," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Before Ethan could respond, Logan continued. "Derek's been talking to reporters. Someone leaked details about the bet, and it's going viral online." Ethan froze. "What do you mean viral?" "There are articles popping up everywhere. Blogs, social media, even mainstream news outlets. People are calling your marriage a sham, saying Olivia deserves better. And Derek, he's giving interviews." A cold dread settled in Ethan's stomach. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Olivia, their son, and the life they'd fought so hard to build. If Derek succeeded in painting them as victims of his manipulation, it would destroy everything. But worse than that, it would break Olivia completely. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed his keys and headed for the door. He didn't care what Olivia had asked. He wasn't going to let Derek tear their family apart. Not now, not ever. As Ethan sped toward the city, Olivia sat in a quiet cafe, miles away, scrolling through her phone. The headlines screamed at her. From every screen, "Millionaire's marriage, exposed as bet gone wrong." Olivia Carter, victim of love game. Comment sections were ablaze with speculation and judgment. Some defended Ethan, others vilified him. But none of it mattered. To Olivia, what hurt most was seeing her name dragged into the chaos, her private pain turned into public spectacle. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls and messages, but she ignored them all, except one. It was from Derek. "I'm sorry it came to this," he wrote. "But sometimes the truth needs to come out." Olivia stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. For the first time, she understood the depth of Derek's bitterness and the lengths he was willing to go to ruin Ethan. But what she didn't understand was why. Why now? Why like this? And what did he hope to gain? Before she could respond, the cafe door swung open and Ethan walked in. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes wild with desperation. "We need to talk," he said, pulling out a chair across from her. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. Whatever happened next would define the rest of their lives. Ethan and Olivia sat across from each other in the quiet cafe. The weight of everything unsaid hung heavy between them. The envelope containing evidence of the infamous bet sat on the table like a ticking time bomb, its contents now exposed to the world, and worse, exploited by Derek. Ethan could see the storm brewing in Olivia's eyes. Confusion, betrayal, anger, but also something softer, more fragile, a flicker of hope that maybe this wasn't the end. He wanted to reach for her hand, to reassure her, but he knew better than to push, when she was barely holding herself together. Before either of them could speak, Olivia's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Derek. It was an unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message. A link appeared on the screen, accompanied by a single line. "You deserve to know the truth." Against her better judgment, she clicked it. What followed was a video montage stitched together with chilling precision. Clips of Ethan laughing with Logan about the bet, screenshots of their private messages, even audio snippets where Ethan's voice dripped with arrogance as he plotted his game. But what struck Olivia most was the final clip. Ethan at a charity gala just weeks ago, surrounded by reporters, casually dismissing questions about his marriage. As if it were nothing more than a publicity stunt, Ethan watched her face fall, watched the color drain from her cheeks. "Olivia, I can explain," he began, his voice cracking under the strain of desperation. But she held up a hand, silencing him before he could continue. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me since day one. That every moment we shared, all those promises you made, they were all part of some sick game?" Her voice shook, not with tears, but with rage. For the first time since they'd reunited, Ethan saw the walls she'd worked so hard to lower rise back up, stronger and sharper than ever. But just as Ethan thought things couldn't get worse, another message popped up on Olivia's phone. This time, it was a live feed notification from a popular gossip blog. The headline read, "Exclusive, Millionaire CEO caught in love scandal. Was it all fake?" Below it, a countdown timer ticked away, signaling the imminent release of yet another exposé. Ethan's stomach churned as he realized what was happening. Someone, likely Derek, was orchestrating a public spectacle, dragging their private pain into the harsh glare of the spotlight. "We have to leave. Now," Ethan said urgently, standing up and grabbing Olivia's arm. She yanked it away, glaring at him with a mixture of defiance and disbelief. "Why should I trust you? So you can spin another lie? Or maybe stage another accidental discovery of secrets?" Her words cut deeper than any blade. But Ethan didn't have time to argue. He grabbed the envelope and shoved it into his pocket, then gestured toward the door. "If you won't come with me, fine. But don't sit here while Derek ruins everything." For a split second, Olivia hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay rooted to the spot, to let the chaos consume her, and prove once and for all that Ethan, Walker wasn't worth fighting for. But another part, the part that still clung to the faintest ember of love, knew she couldn't give up without answers. Without understanding why, slowly, reluctantly, she stood and followed him outside. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional flash of headlights slicing through the night. As they drove back toward Aunt Elena's house, Ethan's mind raced. Who else had access to these files? How far was Derek willing to go to destroy them? And most importantly, how could he convince Olivia that the feelings he had for her now were real, that they transcended the reckless arrogance of his past? When they arrived, Aunt Eleanor greeted them with wide eyes and trembling hands. "Turn on the news," she urged, ushering them inside. On the television screen, talking heads debated the scandal du jour: Ethan Walker's sham marriage, Olivia Carter's role as the unwitting victim, and Derek Collins's cryptic interviews, hinting at darker truths yet to surface. "It's everywhere," Aunt Eleanor whispered, wringing her hands. "They're saying terrible things about both of you." Ethan sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. He felt defeated, cornered, as though every mistake he'd ever made had converged into this singular moment of reckoning. Olivia paced the room, her thoughts colliding like storm clouds. She wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something, but instead, she stopped abruptly and turned to Ethan. "Tell me the whole truth, right now. No omissions, no excuses. If there's anything left of us worth saving, start talking." Ethan took a deep breath. Knowing this was his last chance, he told her everything, from the initial bet with Logan to the moment he realized he'd fallen in love with her. He confessed his fears, his regrets, and the guilt that had haunted him every step of the way. When he finished, the room was silent, except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Olivia stared at him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You had 6 months to tell me the truth. 6 months to prove that you weren't the man who made that bet. Instead, you chose silence." "I know," Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." Before Olivia could respond, the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the tension. Through the window, they saw Derek stepping out of a sleek black car, flanked by 2 men carrying cameras. "This isn't over," Derek called out, his voice dripping with venom. "Not until the world knows exactly who you are, Ethan Walker." As Derek approached the house, Ethan moved instinctively to block Olivia from view, but this time, she didn't retreat. Clutching her phone tightly, she stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. Whatever happened next, she vowed silently, would be on her terms, not Derek's, and certainly not Ethan's. Ethan's voice trembled as he spoke, his words spilling out in a rush. "Olivia, I swear to you, everything I feel for you now is real. Yes, it started as a game, a stupid, selfish game, but the moment I saw who you truly were, that all changed. You made me want to be better, to deserve someone like you." His hand shook as he reached for hers, but she pulled back slightly, her expression unreadable. The weight of his confession hung heavy between them, and for a long moment, neither moved nor spoke. Derek stood just outside the cafe door, watching, through the glass with a smug grin on his face. He had expected this, a dramatic confrontation, Ethan groveling, Olivia torn between anger and lingering affection. But what he hadn't anticipated was the flicker of resolve in Olivia's eyes. She turned to Ethan, her voice steady, despite the storm inside her. "Do you know why your lies hurt so much? It's not because of the bet. It's because when I let myself trust you, I gave you everything. My heart, my dreams, even our child. And now, no matter how sorry you are, I can't unsee what you've done." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Derek burst into the cafe, his camera crew trailing behind him. "Perfect timing," Derek sneered, gesturing for the cameras to roll. Let's give the world an exclusive look at the great Ethan Walker. Begging for forgiveness. For a split second, chaos erupted. Ethan lunged toward Derek, fury blazing in his eyes. But Olivia stepped between them, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Stop," she shouted, turning to face Derek. "This ends now. Whatever vendetta you have against us, whatever satisfaction you think you'll get from airing our private pain, it won't work. Because we're stronger than your games." Derek laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Stronger? Look at yourselves. Your marriage is built on lies, your family falling apart. You think anyone will believe you're some happily ever after fairy tale." But Olivia didn't flinch. Instead, she took a step forward, her gaze piercing. "You're wrong, Derek. This isn't about perfection. It's about fighting for something worth saving, something real. And if you think dragging us through the mud will make me run back to you, then you never understood me at all." Her words silenced him momentarily, but only momentarily. With a smirk, he pulled out his phone and pressed play on a recording. Ethan's voice filled the room, the same cold, arrogant tone from months ago. "She's falling for it faster than I expected," the recording said, echoing cruelly. Olivia froze, her breath catching in her throat. For the first time, she heard the raw evidence of Ethan's betrayal, not filtered through whispers or headlines, but straight from the source. Ethan sank to his knees, his face buried in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, don't let him win." The room seemed to shrink around them, the air thick with emotion. Olivia stared at Ethan, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to walk away, to protect herself and their son from the wreckage of his past actions. But another part, a deeper, quieter part, knew that love wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about choosing to fight for something greater than fear or pride. As Derek gloated, oblivious to the shift happening right in front of him, Olivia made her decision. She turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "Turn off the cameras, Derek. Right now." When he hesitated, she added, "Or I'll tell the world exactly why you broke up with me. How you couldn't handle commitment. How you walked away when things got hard. Is that really the narrative you want?" Derek's smile faltered, uncertainty flashing across his face. For the first time, he looked unsure, vulnerable. Slowly, reluctantly, he signaled for the crew to stop filming. As they packed up, Olivia turned back to Ethan, her expression softening. "We're not okay yet," she said quietly. "And maybe we never will be completely. But if we're going to fix this, if we're going to try, it has to start with honesty. No more secrets. No more running." Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Whatever it takes," he promised. "Just tell me where to begin." As they left the cafe together, hand in hand, it seemed like the worst was finally behind them. But just as they reached the car, Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen, her blood running cold. It was a message from an anonymous number. "Congratulations on surviving round 1. But remember, every empire has its cracks. Yours is no exception." Before she could process the chilling words, Ethan noticed the look on her face. "What is it?" he asked, concern etched into his features. Olivia hesitated, then showed him the message. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the weight of the threat sinking in. "We'll figure it out," Ethan said finally, pulling her close. together. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. Whatever challenges lay in store, they would face them side by side. Because love, they realized, wasn't about having all the answers. It was about finding the courage to keep asking the questions, together. As Ethan and Olivia stood together in the quiet cafe, the tension between them crackled like a live wire. Derek's smug grin faltered for the first time when Olivia stepped forward, her voice steady and unyielding. "This ends now," she said firmly, her words cutting through the chaos like a knife. For a moment, Derek looked taken aback, as if he hadn't anticipated her defiance. But then his expression hardened, and he crossed his arms. "You think you're stronger than me? Than this?" He gestured to the cameras and reporters lingering outside. "The truth always comes out, Olivia. And when it does, you'll see who Ethan really is." Olivia didn't flinch. She turned to Ethan, her eyes searching his face for something, anything that might reassure her. But all she saw was raw vulnerability, the kind that made her heart ache, despite everything. "Tell me the truth," she whispered, her voice trembling. "All of it, right now." Ethan swallowed hard, his hand shaking as he reached for hers. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Everything started as a game, a stupid, selfish game. But the moment I realized how much you meant to me, I wanted to stop. I've been trying to fix it ever since." Derek scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Fix it? You can't fix betrayal, Ethan. Not this kind." He pulled out his phone, holding it up triumphantly. "And thanks to me, the whole world knows exactly what kind of man you are." Before anyone could react, Olivia grabbed the phone from his hand and smashed it against the ground. The screen shattered into pieces, and Derek stared at her, stunned. "If you think exposing him will make me run back to you," she said coldly, "you don't know me at all." For a moment, no one moved. Then Derek let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Fine, have it your way. But don't say I didn't warn you." With that, he stormed out of the cafe, leaving behind a trail of tension that hung heavy in the air. Olivia watched him go, her chest rising and falling with each labored breath. When she finally turned back to Ethan, her eyes were filled with tears. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "Because I was scared," he confessed. "Scared that if you knew the truth, you'd leave, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing you." "Not again." Olivia closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. For so long, she had carried the weight of his betrayal, letting it define their relationship. But standing here now, feeling the sincerity in his words, she realized something. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing to fight for each other, even when it hurt. They left the cafe together, hand in hand, determined to face whatever came next as a team. The media circus surrounding them was relentless, with headlines screaming betrayal and scandal. But Olivia refused to let it consume her. Instead, she focused on what truly mattered: their son, their family, and the future they were building together. Ethan threw himself into proving his commitment, not just with words, but with actions. He scaled back his business ventures to spend more time at home, helped Olivia with late-night feedings, and even surprised her with small gestures of love. A handwritten note tucked into her bag, a bouquet of wildflowers picked from the garden, a warm cup of tea waiting for her after a long day. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Olivia broached the subject neither of them had dared to discuss. "Do you think we'll ever be able to move past this?" she asked softly. Ethan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I think moving past it means accepting that it happened and learning from it. We're not the same people we were 6 months ago or even 6 weeks ago, but maybe that's a good thing. Oliva nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the horizon. It's funny, she mused. When I found out about the bet, I felt like my entire world had fallen apart, but now I feel like it gave us a chance to start over, to build something real. She glanced at Ethan, a small smile tugging at her lips. Something worth fighting for. Over the next few months, life began to settle into a rhythm. The media frenzy died down, replaced by whispers of admiration for how Ethan and Olivia had weathered the storm. Their son grew rapidly, his laughter filling the house with joy and light. Ethan and Olivia continued to navigate the challenges of parenthood, supporting each other through sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. They celebrated the little victories, a successful feeding, a rare nap without crying, and leaned on each other during the tough moments. One afternoon, while putting away laundry, Olivia stumbled upon an old photo album tucked away in a drawer. Curious, she flipped it open, revealing snapshots of their journey together, candid shots from the early days of their renovation project, playful selfies taken during their honeymoon, and tearful embraces captured at their backyard wedding. As she flipped through the pages, she felt a lump rise in her throat. "Look at this," she said, showing Ethan the album. He smiled, pulling her close. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" "More than I ever thought possible," Olivia replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." In that moment, surrounded by memories of their shared struggles and triumphs, she realized something profound. Love wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about finding beauty in the broken pieces and building something stronger because of it. Their second anniversary arrived quietly, marked by a simple dinner under the stars. Aunt Elena joined them, cradling their giggling toddler in her arms, as Ethan and Olivia exchanged heartfelt vows once again. This time, there were no secrets, no fears, just two people promising to stand by each other, no matter what. As they danced beneath the string lights, swaying gently to the music, Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. They weren't perfect, but they were enough. For each other, for their son, and for the life they were creating together. Months later, when asked to reflect on their journey, Olivia smiled knowingly. "Love isn't about never making mistakes," she said. "It's about having the courage to admit them, and the strength to keep going anyway." Ethan nodded in agreement, wrapping an arm around her waist. "And sometimes," he added, "it's about realizing that the person standing beside you is worth every risk." As the sun set over their lavender-scented garden, casting golden hues across their modest yet loving home, Ethan and Olivia knew they had found something rare and precious. A love born from imperfection, tested by adversity, and forged in the fires of redemption. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that was more than enough.